Hi, and welcome to this design sprint training. In this session, which is about 1 hour long, I will show you how to move from a feature building mindset to consistently creating value for both your customers and your business. But first, let's set the context. You probably already feel it. The world is spinning faster than ever. That's both exciting and overwhelming. We're in the AI era where automation and augmentation are shaping the way we work. Consumer behaviors are constantly changing and we need to keep up. There are new regulations, emerging trends, evolving work models, remote, hybrid, in person, that are transforming how we collaborate and build products. It's a lot. As product leaders, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the pace of change. But just keeping up isn't enough. If that's all you're doing, you're already falling behind. To stay ahead, product leaders need to anticipate these shifts and navigate them effectively. That's what this session is about. Look, as a product leader, you need to be out in front, discovering opportunities for growth and innovation. But you're also in the middle, balancing customer opportunities with business strategy, aligning stakeholders, and ensuring delivery and execution with your teams. You're the glue that holds everything together. Doing all of this can feel like balancing on a tightrope. It takes unique skills to do it effectively. In this video, I'll show you how to develop those skills and drive results by mastering a method pioneered at Google, the design sprint. This method will help you solve complex product challenges, de-risk product development, align your stakeholders, accelerate decision making, boost team collaboration. In short, it will help you get more done in less time. So let me tell you a bit about myself. I have 15 years of experience building digital products at my own software company. That's where I first introduced design sprints and experienced their transformative power firsthand. Drawing on that experience, I transitioned into consulting. For the past 8 years, I've worked with large organizations, eBay, Siemens, Redbull, SAP, to name just a few, using design sprints to help them uncover opportunities and validate new product ideas. This hands-on experience has shaped our training program. Since 2016, when we launched the first design sprint training in the world, we've trained over 3,000 professionals globally in design sprints and problem framing. Finally, as Google's official sprint chapter in Berlin and London, we've built a thriving community of practice around these methods. I want to start with a story about building and launching a new product that highlights the importance of design sprints. I'm sure many of you will relate to this. First, do you know what DOA stands for? It's dead on arrival. Keep that in mind, you'll see why it's relevant in a moment. As I mentioned earlier, I've been building products in my own software company. I started in early 2000s, running a team of about 25 people, engineers, designers, QAs, all working in sort of an agile way like many of us do. I acted as the head of product, managing 4 or 5 products at any given time. But today I want to tell you about one particular project, and it's special because it set us up on the path we're on today. Back in 2015, a startup founder named Jim approached us with a vision. He wanted to build a product. Now, Jim wasn't your typical startup founder. He was retired, 68 years old, and inspired by his daughter, a student who was struggling to figure out her career path, he wanted to build this product. Jim's goal was to create something to help students find the best opportunities and start their professional lives on the right foot. The product was called 2 to 5 a.m. Why? Because Jim thought that that's what students do at 2 a.m. They're looking for jobs. I don't know about you, but that's not what I did at 2 a.m. as a student. But anyway, we said, yes, Jim, we'll help you and bring your vision to life. Okay, so we plan to build a product, launch an MVP, learn from it, iterate, and eventually make it a major success. It was the classic approach to building MVPs, right? Keeping things lean and reducing waste. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this approach. We started working on 2 to 5 following Jim's direction since he was the client. Like many other product teams, right? We followed the guidance of business stakeholders. They know the business, they know the goals, and ultimately they're the ones making decisions. But as the project progressed, more stakeholders got involved. Career centers at universities, HR departments in large organizations, and so on. Sounds familiar? Stakeholders jumping in, throwing curveballs, and derailing product teams from their path? That's exactly what happened to us. The scope kept expanding, the goalposts were constantly pushed further out, and naturally, this stretched our timeline. To make things worse, we didn't have access to insights or data to guide our decisions. As a result, every decision became an endless cycles of meetings, team meetings, stakeholder meetings, and generally just a lot of back and forth. To that, a significant time difference between us and the client, similar to the challenges of remote work today, and everything slowed down even more. And when decisions became a clash of opinions, it was usually the most powerful voice in the room that won, and that rarely was mine. Over the time, teams' enthusiasm, motivation, and focus dwindled. But finally, 1 year and $500,000 later, we launched it to 5 a.m. It had plenty of cool features: connections to major social networks, complex data dashboards to manage job searches, tools to help students start their careers. It had an amazing tech infrastructure, great UX, and beautiful UI. We were so proud of it. We've done it. And then we launched it to the world. And here's what happened: it failed. Within 4 months, the company went out of business, dead on arrival. Why did it fail? Well, for the same reason most products fail. It didn't solve a valuable enough problem for its users. Students didn't want it. They didn't like how it solved their problems, or rather, how it didn't solve their problems. This was a big wake up call. We realized there had to be a better way to build winning products. We needed a way to answer critical questions much earlier in the process before investing so much time, so much money, and effort into building a solution. Questions like: does this product solve a real user problem? Do users find it valuable? When and how they're using the product? If we have a solution, what works? What doesn't? What can we improve? What are the must haves versus the nice to haves? These are all crucial questions to answer before moving any idea into production. Because relying on just a great idea, building it, and hoping for the best, that's not a strategy. That's a recipe for failure, as we've experienced. So we started searching for solutions, and I immersed myself in learning everything I could about how to build products: the frameworks, the tools, the methods. I came across all of the usual jargon and terminology in the product world: product discovery and user research to form hypotheses, understanding users with customer journey maps, personas, empathy maps, jobs to be done, validation of those hypotheses using wireframes, prototypes, doing user testing, design thinking, and so much more. I took product management training, investing thousands of euros to develop my product expertise. And then I took these methods and I cobbled together my own discovery process designed to figure out what to build and get buy in from my clients and stakeholders uh, before or when kicking off the projects. Guess what? It didn't work. These tools, they just don't work in isolation, and my clients couldn't care less about an empathy map or a customer journey. They were not interested in a 4 week discovery process because they felt it would just slow them down. They just could not see the benefits. Not only that, but my team of designers and developers, they struggled to take these tools and adopt them in their day-to-day work. Now, we were still stuck, more educated, but still stuck. We're headed in the right direction, but something was still missing. I couldn't put my finger on it until I came across the process Google used to build products. At first, the process Google used to build products seemed almost too good to be true, but it had everything I was looking for. No more product decisions based on stakeholders' opinions, no more endless meetings to make decisions, no more working in silos, no more wasting time and resources on dead ends. The process had a name: design sprints, a framework to quickly validate ideas by directly testing them with customers. But most importantly, design sprints offered something that all of the other tools lacked: collaboration. That was the missing element I was looking for and couldn't quite put my finger on it. And when I say collaboration, is collaboration within the team, but also with stakeholders and clients. And here's why: because the design sprint is designed in such a way that in only 4 days, a cross functional team of experts Following this structured process, end up with a customer tested prototype, which shows what works, what doesn't, and why that happens, providing clear insights on what to do next. Eureka! With nothing to lose, we started using design sprints in our software agency to kick off all of our design and development projects. And the benefits were nothing short of amazing. Honestly, I don't even know how to rank them. They all had such a massive impact on how we worked and on the entire process of bringing a product to life. But let me try. First that comes to mind is team collaboration. Having everyone involved from the beginning and co-creating the solution massively accelerated development. Every role, product, design, engineering, even QA, they work together to create that initial solution. This led to shared ownership and alignment. After a design sprint, everyone knew what to do and could work more efficiently in their roles. No more endless meetings, no more busy work, no more back and forth quarrels between design and development. And this is more relevant than ever today, as remote work has made teams more disconnected, more siloed. They're not together for most of the time. And I think we all know that the best work is done together. And that's what a design sprint does. It brings everyone together, it creates alignment, it accelerates progress. Another huge benefit: faster decision making. We drastically reduced meetings, but more importantly, validating early gave us the confidence to make decisions much faster. And then there's speed. What used to take weeks or sometimes months, like scoping a project or agreeing on a product roadmap, was now compressed into just 1 or 2 weeks. And finally, the biggest benefit: managing clients and business stakeholders. Getting their buy in and solution became so much easier. Difficult conversations were no longer difficult, were a thing of a past. They became productive because discussions now were centered around something tangible, the prototype. The clash of opinions was replaced by customer feedback, leading to informed and confident decisions. I'll never forget my first design sprint in January 2016. At the time, we'd been working with a client for a year, but they were hesitant to invest $200,000 in building and launching their MVP. And honestly, who could blame them? They couldn't visualize what the product would look like, and they had no confidence in the solution that we proposed. As a last resort, I proposed doing a design sprint. I said, look, give me 1 week of your time, and by the end of it, we will figure out what the product is, and we're going to get some evidence that's working. And that's exactly what happened. At the end of the sprint, they signed the contract. 3 months later, we launched the MVP. And by the way, it's still going strong today. And that's such a stark contrast from the 2 to 5 a.m. story I shared earlier. By now, design sprints had become part of every project, and the results were consistently impressive. We began sharing our experience, which quickly grabbed the attention of large organizations. These companies were struggling with the same product challenges, but at a larger scale, which obviously made the consequences even worse. Things like team collaboration issues, misaligned stakeholders, slow progress, wasted resources, and failed products. So we began teaching design sprints to product teams from around the world. For me, this marked a turning point. I realized I could make a bigger impact by facilitating and teaching design sprints. That shift to a career change. After 15 years of building products, failing many times, learning from that as well, I now had the opportunity to teach others how to build them the right way. But that's not all. What we were doing caught the attention of Google, the very birthplace of design sprints. Starting 2017, my partner and I were invited to speak at all Google Sprint conferences to share our experiences. We even co organized a sprint conference called Design Sprints for Change at Google's London office. And the cherry on the cake, we were invited to train Google's own Sprint Academy. How cool is that? Since then, we continue facilitating design sprints directly with product teams from some of the world's largest brands. And here's what happened: no matter the industry, the size of the organization, or the products they worked on, design sprints worked every single time. The experience we gained from running hundreds of these sprints then allowed us to come up with a training program on design sprints, which we taught to 3,000 people over the past 8 years. I'm sharing this for one reason, to show you the power of design sprints. They completely changed my career, allowing me to work with product teams in some of the best companies, and I know they can do the same for you, helping you become a successful product leader who delivers results. No matter the challenges, no matter the context, no matter how difficult your stakeholders might be, and no matter the industry, because you'll always have the right answer. So if you want to be that person, the one who has the answers and can go and work in any company in this world on any product, get in touch. At the bottom of this video, there should be a link to book a call with me. I'd be happy to have a chat and explore how you can take your product leadership to the next level and your product team as well. Now, let's talk about when you need a design sprint. And I will put design sprints in the context of product development lifecycle from product strategy all the way to delivery. A key moment is during the creation of the product roadmap. This is when product managers decide what features or initiatives to put on the product roadmap and they prioritize. Most product managers rely on previous experience, building business stakeholders' requests or market research. Some do a fast follower strategy where they're just copying competitors or implementing third party commodities. But only a small percentage of product managers, around 10%, explore genuinely innovative ideas. And this is where design sprints can make a huge difference. With design sprints, you can validate new ideas quickly, you can tackle complex challenges, and as a result, de-risk investments and accelerate development. For example, we've recently helped a client test and develop their first AI product using design sprints. But here are some other examples. This one comes from a financial institution. Their customers struggle to understand the differences between various card types. The challenge was, how might we make it easier and more intuitive for users to choose the best card for their needs? The second one is from a German car maker. Modern cars collect a lot of user data, but manufacturers need user consent in order to utilize it. So the challenge was, how might we increase data sharing consent among drivers while ensuring compliance and building brand trust? The final one is a marketplace. This is one of the oldest marketplaces on the internet, and as a result, they had a ton of overlapping features that confused their sellers. The challenge became, how might we leverage AI to provide sellers with the right educational support in context to increase their sales? But design sprints aren't only for defining roadmaps. You can also use them while you're building and executing your roadmap when the teams get stuck implementing specific features or they might not agree on which approach to take. This is where design sprints help. The team gets together, think your product managers, designers, engineers, even QA, and they figure out a solution in a very short amount of time. At this stage, though, the goals are smaller. The scope is narrower, as you will see in the examples I will show. Here's the first one. We worked with a retail e-commerce company. Their users struggle with finding the right size when shopping online, leading to many returns. They already knew they wanted to implement a 3D scanning technology via phone cameras, but did not know how to do that without disrupting the existing user experience. So that was what the sprint was about. The second example comes from a sprint with a restaurant reservation platform. Restaurant owners lacked technical expertise to properly set up their accounts, which impacted their ability to engage with customers and maximize their bookings. A design sprint helped align the team and create a better onboarding experience. But if you want to make a bigger impact, you should use design sprints upstream in the product discovery and strategy phases. This is where you're asking critical questions like, where is our product going? What else should we build? And deciding on the big bets like entering a new market, leveraging new technologies like AI, creating new value propositions or business models. This is the best moment to do a design sprint, not only because you'll get answers to your questions very quickly, but most importantly, you get validation and confidence in your decisions, which helps a lot with getting stakeholder buy-in and support for your product roadmap afterwards. And I want to give you here a couple of examples. The first one is a major UK newspapers that faced an existential threat to their business model. Their core audience was aging, and young generations weren't interested in print media anymore. So the big question was, how might we transition from print to digital in a way that attracts younger audiences while still retaining our loyal readers? They had spent 6 months debating back and forth different approaches without making progress. And in just one focus sprint, they identified 5 clear opportunities to pursue. Another example comes from a video technology company working on AI-powered traffic management, and they needed to gain trust from traffic engineers. The challenge was, how do we design a system that engineers trust and use? Sum up, design sprints can be used for any problem or challenge that's affecting people. Human-centric, if we want to use a buzzword. They are not about purely technical problems, but about solving complex, high-impact issues with no known solutions. In conclusion, you can use design sprints anywhere in your product development lifecycle, but know that you will make the most impact in the early stage of product strategy and when deciding on the high impact features for your product roadmap. So, how do design sprints work? Let me give you a quick overview. A design sprint compresses months of work into just 4 days. A cross functional team of experts tackles a big challenge by following a structured process. At the end of the sprint, you have a customer tested prototype. We've already discussed some examples of challenges that can be tackled with design sprints. These challenges should be human centric, high impact, complex or complicated, and they should not have a known solution. If you know the solution, you should just build it. Do not waste time doing a design sprint. But I want to talk a little bit more about these challenges because it's important. To get the best results from a design sprint, the challenge needs to be well defined and clearly articulated. At Design Sprint Academy, we like to use a problem statement format that highlights who is the target audience, the users, the customers we're solving for. Sometimes they can be internal stakeholders if we're solving an internally facing problem or we're working on an internal product. What is the actual problem that they have and that we want to solve with our product? When do they face this problem? What's the context in which it happens? And then the value our solution creates, both for the customer and the business. This problem statement forms the foundation of a successful design sprint, and that's your starting point. Once the problem is clear, we can bring in the best experts from across the organization to solve it. Typically, complex problems like this involve different stakeholders from different departments, and potential solutions require input from many internal teams. Traditionally, a product manager would meet with all of these groups individually, with business to flesh out the requirements, with design to create the concept and the user experience, with engineering to build it. But this process usually involves a lot of back and forth. For example, engineering might raise a feasibility concern about a design, sending the product manager back to the design team to find a new approach. And let's not forget about how much time this all takes. Relevant people are rarely available to work together at the same time. In a design sprint, we skip all that inefficiency by assembling everyone whose input, perspective, and expertise is needed to solve the problem. This means bringing together a diverse team, which could include sales and marketing, product, engineering, design, even legal for highly regulated industries, finance, and more. These experts work together for 4 focus days to find a solution. Now, taking 7, 10 people away from their day to day work for 4 days might seem like a big ask, but this is a classic case of slowing down to move fast. Think about the alternative: countless meetings spread over weeks or sometimes even months to reach the same result. With a design sprint, it's all done in 4 days. And because everyone is aligned, the work afterward is far more efficient. Teams have clarity and the endless back and forth is eliminated. So, what do these 4 days look like? Let me break it down for you. Day one, understand and define. Day one is all about mapping the challenge, the problem space, and defining what success looks like. Now, this isn't about figuring out the problem. You should already know that before starting the design sprint, as we've already discussed. Instead, it's about diving deep to understand the problem from both the business and user perspectives. By the end of the day, you'll have a clear set of risks, assumptions, and those big questions you need answers to before moving forward with execution. Day two is ideate and decide. On day two, the team gets creative. Everyone brainstorms and sketches solutions individually. The goal here is to ensure that every idea gets captured. By the end of the day, you'll typically have 7 to 10 competing solutions for the same problem. Then the team comes together to review and evaluate all of these ideas, deciding which ones to move forward with. Day three is prototype day. It's all about building a prototype. But don't think of this as the final product. It doesn't need to be perfect by any means. The goal is to create a realistic facade of the product or the service based on the solutions you chose at the end of day two. It's just enough to simulate the real thing and test its desirability. Day four, testing with users. Finally, on day 4, you bring in 5 target users to test your prototype. This step is crucial because it helps you answer the big questions, risks, assumptions you identified on day 1. You'll see what works, what doesn't, and most importantly, why. And the end result, a customer tested prototype that either gives you confidence in your direction or shows you exactly what to refine before you invest further. So, what makes design sprints work so well? To answer that, let's take a closer look at who's involved and the guiding principles behind the design sprint. As I mentioned earlier, a design sprint is a structured process, and that's why you need a facilitator. The facilitator's role is to guide the process, manage the time, and keep the discussions focused. Essentially, they make sure that everything keeps moving forward while following the structure of the sprint. One important thing about facilitators, they should remain neutral. They don't take part in ideation or decisions, they just focus on the process. They own that part. When design sprints first came on the scene, UX designers often stepped into the facilitator role. It made sense; they're already using design sprints or other type of workshops in their roles. But a facilitator doesn't have to be a designer. Product managers, agile coaches, scrum master are just as capable of assuming the role of the facilitator. Next, we have the decider. The decider is a critical part of the team, so they're part of the team. They set the vision for the product, decide which solution get prototyped, and then they make small decisions to help team move forward whenever they get stuck. Decider is someone with responsibility and accountability for the sprint's results, but also for the product in itself. So this would typically be a product manager, chief product officer, or a senior executive. And their involvement in the sprint is essential because as the person responsible for the product, they can champion the outcomes and then they ensure that the ideas from the sprint don't just stay on post-its on the walls, they're just followed through and implemented afterwards. And finally, there's the team. We've already discussed the team. It's cross functional, made up of all the experts needed to solve the problem. This mix of perspectives leads to better outcomes because the solutions already incorporate input from all relevant areas right from the start. Now, let's talk about the key principles that make design sprint so effective. First one would be together alone. One of the most powerful aspects of the design sprint is how it balances individual work with team collaboration. Most activities in the sprint would start with individual ideation or individual work or an individual share out, everyone thinking and working on their own, followed by group discussion for alignment. This together alone approach helps avoid groupthink and ensures that every idea gets on the table before decisions are made. It's a great way to reduce bias and mitigate groupthink as well. The second one would be equal participation. In a design sprint, everyone gets an equal chance to share their ideas, their opinions, their decisions as well. The process is designed so that discussions aren't dominated by the loudest or most senior voices, as it so often happens. And then finally, we have tangible discussions. Another key principle of the sprint is making everything visual. All discussions, ideas, decisions are captured visually, whether that's on post-its, on boards, flip charts, digital collaboration tools, whatever that might be. So there's clarity and focus at every single step. This visual approach not only keeps everyone aligned, but also ensure there's a clear record of the progress, how the process worked, and also of how the team arrived at the solution they got in the end. In conclusion, if we look at the process, how it's designed, the roles that we have in a design sprint, we can see it's a perfect formula to solve all of this collaboration chaos that usually happens at the workplace. Now we have a structured process that people can follow to reach a result. Not only that, not only do you reach a result, but the process also boosts creativity. And in the end, it helps the teams make faster, user centric decisions. And finally, it's really useful to get the stakeholder buy in. No, no longer do you have to go into countless meetings to try to get your point of view across, to convince stakeholders that, hey, this is the best approach for our product. Instead of doing all of that, now you have a tangible prototype that you can show to your stakeholders alongside customer feedback, and that's going to also help them make decisions much faster and more confidently. Good. And now I want to show you how design sprints work in practice. Here's a case study from Red Bull. They approached us to run a design sprint with this business need. We want to create a new community section on our global website and activate users. But we don't know what feature set would make users sign up, log in, and come back. So they wanted to build something, but they weren't sure what. That was a big problem. Nothing uncommon, many product teams are struggling with the same problem. And they were at the point in their product development process where they were trying to figure out what high impact features they could put on their roadmap while de-risking development effort as much as possible. Right? So that's where they were. Not only that, but this community touched different stakeholders and business areas which wanted different things. No surprise here either. They also had a lot of ideas of what they could do, so their backlog was full. But again, they didn't know what would work, what wouldn't. And that's kind of normal because no one has a crystal ball. That was our starting point. They also had a very wide audience, very broad one. They wanted to appeal to everyone who's into sports and music. And if we think about it, that's pretty much everyone. While that's a good end goal, it wasn't a good starting point for a design sprint because the audience was too broad. It was generic. Without focus, you don't get real insights to drive feature development. So then, how do we move from build the features mindset to a user-centric mindset? And to do that, we propose this approach. First, we do problem framing to define a target audience, identify and prioritize what users want, and align all stakeholders on these user goals. Then we'd use a design sprint to develop and test the solution. As you can see, we couldn't start with a design sprint here because the problem was not clear. As I mentioned earlier, a design sprint is not the right method to define problem, but they're great for solving them. So we started, and in our problem framing process, the first priority was to narrow down the audience. We talked to our client and asked, okay, out of your broad audience, who's someone that's highly engaged and also easy to contact? It turned out that the biker audience was the perfect focus. So we profiled them. As you can see, this is a very basic persona, 6 bullet points, but that was enough to identify who we're targeting. And using this profile, we reached out to 4 people in this audience and we talked to them. By the way, the biker audience are those people highlighted on the sidelines in yellow watching the race. So we ran 4 interviews with them. We wanted to discover how they interact during these events. How do they consume media content? What are their goals? What are some of their biggest pain points and obstacles? We did this, and armed with these insights, we started the problem framing workshop. It was a 1-day workshop where we brought in relevant stakeholders, such as managers from different business areas, as you can see here. In the workshop, stakeholders use the research output to build customer journey maps. Actually, they were recreating the entire customer experience using these raw insights from the interviews, and they could see how users would, their customers would experience going to a race. This led to a lot of aha moments as they got to know their users better. One thing that I want to emphasize here is that we didn't just present them the research. Usually stakeholders don't react well to that, but they don't retain a lot of information. Imagine someone going through a 20-page PowerPoint file full of research outputs, right? So that doesn't work well. What we did here, we wanted them to engage with the actual data, and that's why they recreate this entire customer experience map, as you can see in this picture here. That was just a part of the workshop. Stakeholders also share their perspectives and justify their own needs, right? That was a big part of the workshop where they could express their own needs. Every stakeholder had KPIs to hit, they had business objectives, and this clashed with each other. We discussed all of that, put it on the table, figured out what was important, and finished by connecting the user needs with the customer goals. This allowed us to come up with some really good problem statements that addressed both business and user needs. And showing the value that a future solution would bring to both. We prioritized and picked one of the most important challenges for the design sprint. At the end of the problem framing, we had a clear problem statement and also stakeholder buy-in and support for running the design sprint. And now we were ready to go in solution mode, building and testing the solution with the design sprint. So we moved into the design sprint with a cross-functional team. As you can see, we had people from design, software, marketing, social media, branding, product. There are 11 people in total, slightly larger team, but it worked well. We went through the same process that I described before. Day one, understanding the problem, leveraging all of the work done during problem framing. Then we moved into day two, sketching solutions, discussing them, evaluating them, and choosing the most promising one. Day three was about building the prototype. And this is something that I want to show you. So we had lots of features that we wanted to test, live video showing what's going on during the events, live updates to keep people informed, a video snap feature where users could take a 10 to 30-second video snippet and share it on social media, highlights like the head-to-head races between racers, and then a discussion forum where users could connect and discuss. This was the prototype we built in just one day. Then on day four, we tested this prototype with 5 customers. And this is something very important here. When testing in a design sprint, we're not testing for usability. We don't care so much about how the interface looks or even the UX. We're testing how well the solution meets the user needs, how much they like the concept. We're testing for desirability. So for the testing sessions, we gave users a mission. Instead of just flipping through the screens, reviewing them, and providing feedback, they were tasked with accomplishing something. In this case, the mission was something like try to catch every moment of the race and enjoy the event as if you were there. And after running all of these interviews, we collected all of the feedback, as you can see here on the post-its, and we discovered a lot of things. Features like Snap feature were delightful. Those are like the wow moments for the users. Live updates were also well received. On the other hand, we had features like discussion forums, which didn't resonate. Users said, we already have WhatsApp, we're not going to use this. Some features were confusing and needed rethinking. But overall, the team had a lot of clarity on what worked, what didn't, and why that happened. So here's where things stood at the end of the project. After problem framing, we had a clear problem statement and buy-in from stakeholders. After the design sprint, we had a clear problem solution fit and team alignment, and everyone was ready to start working. But the most important outcome wasn't just these deliverables, it was what happened next. This clarity around both the problem and the solution allowed the team to move forward and work in their roles more efficiently. The product manager could confidently write clear PRDs or product requirements, knowing the roadmap aligned with both business and user needs. They could focus on doing their job without all of the usual guesswork. The design team, now knowing exactly what the product was, could design the end-to-end experience. Remember, that's not something that we do in a design sprint. So now is the time for usability, UX, and all of the UI bells and whistles. The engineering team, having been part of the sprint as well, already understood the scope. They could estimate resources and start planning their work right away. And finally, the business stakeholders could champion the solution and ensure there are enough resources to push it forward and implement. All of this happened without this usual lengthy cycle of meetings, compromises you have to do, and endless convincing just to get alignment and someone's buy-in. Instead of taking weeks or even months to align everyone, this approach takes significantly less time while delivering significantly better outcomes. Going back to our case study, from defining the problem to creating a solution and getting everyone aligned around them, we went from nothing to clarity and action in just 2 weeks. Now let's see how design sprints can elevate your role as a product manager. To explain, let's compare what average product managers do versus what top product managers excel at. Average product managers rely heavily on their past experience and past successes to guide their future decisions. They build new products and features based on what has worked before. Now, that's actually a good strategy up to a point, but here's the problem. Context and user preferences are constantly evolving. You can't keep looking in the rear view mirror to define the future. And what if you're just starting out and don't have past successes to draw from? Product managers, on the other hand, base their decisions on validated customer problems and data driven insights. They prioritize features and products that solve real user needs. They don't assume they know. We've always done it this way. It's not part of their vocabulary either. Average product managers crumble under stakeholder pressure and letting priorities be dictated by the loudest or most powerful voices in the room. It's easy to see why. When it's your opinion versus theirs, the person with more authority wins. You can argue that the product manager does not have formal authority, so they can't do whatever they want without stakeholders' approval. That's true, but what they can do is influence decisions. Top product managers don't rely on opinions alone. They use insights from research, experiments, and testing to bring evidence to the table. Armed with data, they can influence stakeholders by shifting conversation away from who's right to what's right. In my experience, stakeholders aren't trying to sabotage progress or product managers. They share the same goals as you, building a successful product. But most of the time, they don't have access to the same data you do. When presented with evidence, they almost always make the right decision. Average product manager also aim to appear as if they're customer focused. They scan support logs, collect user requests, and add them to the backlog without having a clear strategy. While this seems like they're solving customer problems, it often results in a disjointed product that doesn't align with business goals. So, product managers, on the other hand, ensure user needs are correlated with business strategy, with market trends, and the competitive landscape. They understand that just because something's important to a few customers doesn't mean it's a strategic priority for the business. Finally, average product managers tend to play it safe. They avoid big bets and transformative ideas. Why is that? Two reasons, I think. First, they don't know where these ideas should come from, and no, they don't need to come from the product manager alone. Second, like most people, they stick to their comfort zone. This is to me the most dangerous thing a product manager can do in the long run. These managers risk becoming backlog managers, feeding into the feature factory model. So product managers, however, don't fear new ideas. They know how to source them, leveraging the creativity and intelligence of their teams. And they're not just idea collectors. They test and iterate on those ideas quickly, separating the gold from the noise and moving into the action. In the end, it boils down to two choices. You can stay in your comfort zone, try to repeat past successes, and hope for the best. But here's the thing, what happens not if, when you switch companies, industries, or products? The experience you're relying on may no longer be relevant. Or, second choice, you can focus on the future. Always be on the lookout for opportunities. Does it matter whether you're an average product manager or a top one? Maybe you're happy where you are, delivering features and staying in your comfort zone. And sure, that might work for now. But here's the thing, in tough times when businesses have to make difficult decisions, they keep the very best. Who do you think they'll choose? The backlog manager or the leader who consistently delivers results no matter the product or the context? Same goes when hiring. It's not just about staying employed. The business landscape is evolving faster than ever. You have emerging technologies like AI, which are reshaping the business. How many of you product managers get these questions? What can we do with AI? If you're relying solely on your past experience to answer that question, you'll be stuck. So, yes, there is growing pressure to stay ahead of the curve, and it's your choice. Stay in your comfort zone and try to keep up, or step up and be the leader who can anticipate and navigate change effectively. Thank you for sticking with me until now. So, you might be wondering what's next. Or maybe you're asking yourself, will this work for me, for my context, for my company? If so, I'd like to invite you to a quick coaching call. During the call, I'll take the time to get to know you better and you learn more about us at the Design Sprint Academy. I'll work with you to understand your goals and answer any questions that you might have, whether it's about design sprints, the training program, or how to bring design sprints into your work and into your organization. Together, we're going to figure if this is the right fit for you and whether design sprints are something that you should be learning and applying. I personally do all of these coaching calls, so you can imagine my calendar fills up pretty quickly. There are only a few spots left, so book your call today. Let's meet and let's have a chat. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts about design sprints, why I believe they're a game changer for product managers, and how product teams work together. What makes design sprints so effective is that they don't require you to change how your company works, overhaul your process, or get approval for some massive transformation. Let's face it, that's highly unlikely to happen. Instead, design sprints are plug and play. You can seamlessly integrate them into any existing workflow or process. They're about doing the work you're already doing, like gathering user insights, collaborating and meeting with your team, ideating, prototyping, testing, all those things, but in a far more structured and efficient, effective way. Let me show you how. You're already following a process like this when building products. You have a roadmap, backlog, and development sprints that results in launching features. And you're hoping those features will be well received by your customer, obviously. None of that has to change. But here's the catch: your development engine is only as good as the input it receives. I think you've all heard the saying garbage in, garbage out. And that's where design sprints come into play. Design sprints let you control that input. They ensure your solutions are validated and then your team is fully aligned around them before you invest significant time, effort, and resources into building them. This approach massively reduces the risk of building the wrong products or wasting resources. Want to take it one step further? Validate the problems before you even start thinking about solutions. That's where problem framing comes in, but that's a topic for another time. Thank you again for watching. Get in touch, and I look forward to meeting and speaking with you. Bye.